Hello and welcome. I'm Jamie Hiles.
I'm Lydia Judy.
And I'm Derek Lemaster.
And this is Screen Bloody Movies, the podcast where you get some horror news and movie review from the three of us. I hope you guys are doing well. We are doing pretty good. How are you doing, Lydia?
Pretty good. I had a good day today. Took the dogs for a walk, got some Japanese food, gave the dogs a bath. Successful day for me.
And you, Derek?
Doing great. My wife and I found out yesterday that we're having a baby girl.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, so we're pretty excited. She went straight out after the doctor's appointment, started buying a whole bunch of girl stuff. But hey, that was to be expected. She told me she's broke today. Probably hear them upstairs.
Sure can.
That's exciting.
Very great news. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm pretty excited.
As of this recording, we have posted episode 1, which you can check out on YouTube and Spotify, as well as Anchor. We will put the descriptions down here so you can see where to watch and listen to the podcast. Though if you're listening to it, chances are you've already found it. So there's no time to waste, guys. I've got a lot of horror news today. So I hope you guys are interested and ready to react to some of these.
Let's do it.
I'm going to start with what's the biggest news of the day as far as horror is concerned, which is the trailer for this new film starring Taryn Manning has dropped called Karen. You guys seen or heard anything about this?
I have not heard anything about this.
Nope.
Okay. So Karen is a film directed by Coke Daniels. And it's about as on the nose as you can get. Taryn Manning plays a racist woman named Karen White who terrorizes a black couple in an American suburb. The reaction to the trailer has not been kind for the most part, with people describing it as a Jordan Peele Get Out SNL skit. They keep comparing it unfavorably to an SNL sketch. I'll let you guys watch the trailer and see what you think of it. It's I watched it earlier. It is definitely a thing that exists. What is your reaction to such a movie idea, Derek?
Too on the nose. Sometimes you got to be subtle with your messaging, and this doesn't sound very subtle.
I don't know how much more subtle you can be than Karen White. I mean, Lydia, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it was only a matter of time. I mean, what's scarier?
There is nothing scarier than a racist Karen. That is for sure. And nothing worse. So I will condone taking them down for sure. But eek! It's an interesting film. So basically she terrorizes a African-American couple that moves into her neighborhood. And
I mean, the sad thing is you can picture that happening in real life.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It just looks not very... we'll see. That's what I'll say, but we'll see. Next, Lydia, I'm going to share my screen for this next one because I think you're going to dig this. NECA has announced that they are making an action figure for the Wolfman.
Oh.
And I will share with you guys what this looks like. And I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised by this. You guys see that?
Ah.
He looks pretty great. He's to be released in 2021. Also, it says the Wolfman, Boris Karloff, and the Mummy, and Bela Lugosi as Dracula are all being released in this line.
Nice.
So What are your thoughts on that? I know you probably have something to say about that, Lydia.
Well, I think everybody is going to know what to get me for Christmas now. I don't know if I can wait that long, but
yeah, it looks pretty good. I was actually quite impressed with it. This I just found out right before we started. But did you guys know that they are doing there are two new Hellraiser projects in the works?
So I didn't know that, but my follow-up to that is why?
Well, they're both kind of reboots, is what I'm hearing.
Okay.
So they're not like the terrible direct-to-DVD sequels that we got, especially Revelation.
Is that the one where they did it with a camcorder?
Yes, that's the one.
And there was a part where wasn't there like an incest part in that as well?
Yes. It was literally made to keep the rights to Hellraiser.
Well,
Like kind of like they did with that Fantastic Four reboot in or the Fantastic Four try in the 90s. But there are two. One is an HBO Max series headed up by David Gordon Green and Mike Dougherty and Clive Barker. So Clive Barker's involved in the HBO Max series, and with David Gordon Green and Michael Dougherty, that sounds like it's going to be fantastic. And there is a second one that is headed up by it's a feature film directed by David Bruckner, which is supposedly I don't know much about it, but they found their lead actress. Okay, so it looks like it's a remake. The reboot won't center on a new version of Christy Cotton, however. So it is a reboot. And it's produced by David S. Goyer, which, of course, if you guys don't know, is the writer behind Blade, the director of the third Blade movie, and co-wrote the Batman Begins in the Dark Knight with Christopher Nolan. So he's got some great creds, but he also wrote and directed The Unborn, if you remember that.
I do remember that, yeah.
That movie from the early aughts. So what are your guys' thoughts on not one, but two Hellraiser?
Bad move. bad move.
Why is it so bad?
So I if they would have went in one direction or the other, but unless they're going to cross over, it's a bad move. I feel like you're going to.
I think they might be competing properties. I think the rights got split. I don't know, but I think that's what it's kind of sounding like. So they're competing properties.
Like if you were going to do like start out like a limited series that led into a feature film, maybe, but you can't have two competing, movies with the same storyline and the same characters.
Well, I mean,
you can, but I would not.
Let's put a pin in that because I want to hear Lydia's reaction. Then I'll respond to your statement. Lydia, what are your thoughts on this?
I honestly don't know. I didn't watch. I think I've seen Hellraiser one time, and it was probably over 10 years ago. So I don't quite remember it, except that it made me really uncomfortable with the gore.
It's uncomfortable for a lot. The sex and the gore are uncomfortable to some. Believe it or not, Derek and I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure I watched this as a kid.
Yeah, me too.
I watched the first Hellraiser as a kid, and looking back, I'm like, why was I allowed to watch this one? Like Nightmare and Friday I can get because they're tongue-in-cheek and fun.
Yeah.
But Hellraiser is like gross.
Yeah, a skinless guy walking around. I mean, who's not going to let their 7-year-old watch that?
Trying to have a woman seduce dudes so he can basically use their flesh to rebuild himself.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucked.
Yeah.
But to what you were saying, Derek, it's a thing that is happening now if rights are split. I mean, they did it with Child's Play.
Mm-hmm.
You had the remake, which I actually thought was fun. I thought it was a pretty fun movie. And now you have the TV series that's airing on USA and Sci-Fi. That's written by Don Mancini and stars Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly and the whole gang. So you're continuing the original Chucky storyline, but you have this tangent where they remade the first movie because they have the rights to it. So
the movie, it seemed like you thought it was fun. How did it do at the box office? I think it was considered a flop, right?
I think it did well enough. I don't think it was necessarily a flop. It looked like it made 30 million domestically on a budget of 10. So worldwide it made. It made its money. I mean, it made a decent amount of money, I would guess.
Yeah,
so
I imagine it. A lot of that was playing off of the original, the people who watched the movie originally. Because I'm a big fan of all of the Child's Play movies. Even the most recent one where they're in the insane asylum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think they're fun, and that's great that they're doing the TV series. But yeah,
so we'll see how this. I'm excited for
how it goes.
I'm excited for the HBO Max series because of the involvement of David Gordon Green and Clive Barker and Michael Dougherty. I think that's going to be a lot of horror cred and a lot of horror talent in that one, combined in that one series. This is interesting. Apparently, Otto Bathurst is going to direct a premium TV series of Frankenstein.
A what?
Right. So a premium TV series. Let's see where it says. So basically, if you saw the Netflix version of Dracula, did you guys watch that? Netflix's Dracula?
Mm-mm.
Yes.
So we're gonna do they're doing a premium version of Frankenstein. I don't know if it's going to be directly like that, but it says it's a reimagining set in pre-Victorian Europe and focuses on the behaviors and obsessions of a scientist exploring the fine thread between life and death.
Did you guys see Penny Dreadful?
Yes.
No. Jamie, did you like the Frankenstein arc in that movie?
I didn't watch all of it, so I couldn't tell you. I've watched a few episodes of Penny Dreadful.
Gotcha.
But
it's definitely an acquired taste for sure.
But the thing with this, what I think is interesting about it is, I mean, you can do anything with Frankenstein. You can always update and modernize Frankenstein. The last, I think, crack at Frankenstein was that James. Was the. No, that was definitely one. Daniel Radcliffe version is the one I was thinking of.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that one. I remember
with James McAvoy.
Yeah, I remember watching the trailers for it, but I had never actually seen that.
Victor Frankenstein, I think, is what it was called.
Yeah,
and it was fine. Did you guys see that movie?
No.
Oh, it was okay. But that's some gothic horror news for you. And then finally, they are making a Wolf Creek 3.
Yeah, why not? I thought the first one was really disturbing.
Yes.
It was real disturbing. And when that guy finally showed his colors, he's a weird dude. But, yeah, very interesting.
Lydia, do you have any thoughts on the third Wolf Creek movie?
I haven't seen any of them, so.
Oh. Well,
that's the one in the Australian outback, right?
Yes, the one in the Australian outback.
Yeah, I've never seen the second one, but the first one was something else.
It's dark, yeah. It's definitely dark. And then one more little tidbit that I just found funny, and I'm rooting for, is that Steven Spielberg is still reportedly determined to prevent a Jaws reboot from happening. And let's give him a round of applause.
Yeah, fight the good fight, man.
We do not need a reboot to Jaws. It's perfect.
Yeah, you know what? They should make a movie called Deep Blue Sea or something. And
oh my god,
they definitely shouldn't try to mess with a masterpiece
No.
of a movie. That's just silly. Man, come up
Don't-
with an original idea.
Don't remake Deep Blue Sea either. That movie is perfect. Okay.
I actually like Deep Blue Sea. And it was just the first shark movie I could think of.
No, I mean,
I love
it has Oscar-winning turns from LL Cool J.
There you go. his
And
wonderful
that
bird.
beautiful CGI shark that eats Samuel L. Jackson. So
I remember that when I was so little. Like, I was like a little kid when that came out, and I remember that scene fully to this day.
you know what? So do I. I remember watching that with my buddy Zach, and I watched it first before that. But I watched it with my buddy Zach, and when the shark jumps out and eats him, we rewound it like 4 times because we thought it was just the funniest thing. It's out of the blue, and the CGI was so janky and bad because it was the early aughts, right? I mean, that was way early, so it's just woo. But yeah, that's a fun movie. It is.
I remember seeing the cover like on a big poster. I thought that cover was pretty cool.
It was. Did you guys watch The Meg?
No.
Yep.
It was fun.
It was fun. It definitely was. It was
It's Jason Statham fighting a giant shark.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, I'd pay money for that.
They call it Finn and the Furious.
Oh my god.
So I'm pretty sure Jason Statham was at least a collegiate diver, if I'm not mistaken. He might
Yeah.
have.
I heard that
but
too.
He was definitely. I saw some video of him.
Yeah, it's weird. He has hair. And
I know.
disturbing.
You're like, wait a second. I know who that guy is.
All right. I think we've eased in enough, guys. Are you guys ready to tackle this film? So last week, if you guys recall, we reviewed John Carpenter's underrated 1980 film, The Fog. And we each gave it glowing marks. I think I gave it 8 pumpkins. What did you give it, Lydia? 8 as well?
I think it was a 7, but it should have been. I feel like.
Okay, so you're changing your rating to an 8.
I don't want to go back on what I said, but I just feel like maybe it should have been an 8.
And Derek, yours was a 7.25. You stupid son of a bitch.
7.25.
So let's see how those ratings. Let's see how those ratings compare to the 2005 version of The Fog.
Master remake.
So the first thing we got to get out of the way is that in the early 2000s there was a trend of remakes in general. Obviously,
You guys hear my cat? I'm sorry.
I did not, but now that you
Good.
pointed it out,
I'm ready to give her a tranquilizer or something.
So in the early 2000s, there was a remake boom just in general, right? And they started remaking a lot of John Carpenter's properties. They did Assault on Precinct 13. They did John Carpenter's Halloween, which we'll probably get to one day. And then they did The Fog. And this was 2005, so this was right around the beginning of that remake boom. And this movie was directed by Rupert Wainwright and written by Cooper Lane, and it stars Tom Welling, Maggie Grace, and Selma Blair. So let's just start off, I guess, at the beginning, because that's the best place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, we talked about the opening of The Fog at length, the opening of John Carpenter's 80 Fog. And we talked about how great the atmosphere was, how it set the atmosphere. And it had that nice little ghost story and just grabbed us from the beginning, essentially, right? So this movie opens with what? What does it start with?
It starts with you get a glimpse of them setting the boat on fire and burning that down. That was actually one of my, so I made a list of good and bad, and I actually liked the opening of this movie, the burning of the boat. I thought that it gave a little insight into like that whole event, because I think in the 1980 version they ran it adrift on purpose, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they purposely ran it adrift in the 1980 version. So this one opens with the boat fire, and pretty well done. It's fine. It's one of those you don't have context for anything, so you don't know. Except, I'm not a fan of how it's shot. Doesn't look good, and the scares are just not there in the beginning. But my biggest problem with the beginning of this movie is its score. The score throughout this movie is boring. If I may say so. I'm not a fan of the score of this movie. When we talked last week about the opening theme to the fog, when the score kicks in, it's that eerie little piano note, which I'll drop in again right here. This is the score for the 2005 version of the fog. So, I mean, there's just not really a comparison. So you guys both like the opening?
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, I didn't hate it. I did think. I mean, like you said, there's no, reason to what's happening yet, except the fact that I had just watched the old one, so it's like kind of like, why are they doing this? But it's like it's fine.
It's fine. So here's where my real problem comes in. It's right after we get the introduction, we get the opening, we get the introduction to our characters in present day. And we are immediately introduced to the new Nick Castle. Not played by the strappingly handsome Tom Atkins.
Whoa. Strappingly handsome Tom Welling. Just saying, in his own right.
Just because you have a crush on Clark Kent,
hey,
doesn't mean that he could...
My son's name is Clark. There's a reason. Not because of Tom Welling. Superman.
Yeah.
Well, I would name him after the Henry Cavill version. Because we're introduced to our new Nick Castle, and immediately he's a dick. He's immediately sleeping with a woman while he's kind of committed to another woman.
You go back to that guy code, like different zip code. She's in New York. I feel like whenever they do reconnect, when he tries to pick her up and that goes awry. By the way, I think the acting in this, especially with that character, Tom Welling, specifically that scene, was pretty bad. But it did seem like they had a very strained relationship. So I'm going to give him a pass on that one.
I am not. Because, you can make the argument, she was gone or whatever. But he specifically mentions, aren't you still with Elizabeth? So, and he's like, well, yeah. Well, if you're with her, it doesn't matter if she's in Ghana.
I mean,
she left without telling him.
She did leave without telling him.
Yeah. I guess in that, maybe he didn't get the memo. Fox.
What definitely did happen is he, for no reason, is sleeping with Stevie Wayne in this film.
Wouldn't you?
The single mom who runs the lighthouse, and then just the story decides not to just bring it back at all. We have one awkward scene where he runs into her, but there's never a conflict between both the female leads. It's just not a thing. So why the hell is that in there?
I picked up on that. My wife, actually, we were laying in, like I had taken notes and things like that. We're laying there, and just out of the blue, she's like, "You know what I didn't like about it?" What? She's like, "They never did anything with this story arc." So yeah, I feel like that was a major miss.
Yeah. So what do you think about Nick Castle, Lydia?
I thought. In this movie, he just isn't really, he doesn't listen to anyone. I don't know. I guess he's more of a selfish character in this one.
Yes, I felt like he was selfish and kind of stupid, right?
Yeah.
Kind of dumb. He just doesn't listen to anybody, and he's after just what he wants. He's like dude, he definitely tries to bang Elizabeth as the hitchhiker before he knows it's Elizabeth as the hitchhiker.
Mm-hmm.
My dude has some problems.
So was he? That's one thing that got me too, because I was like, I thought I was like, oh, he knew that was her. That's why he said that, to like mess with her. That's
No,
what I was like, but it was just
no,
bad acting, so it like took away from the like comedy of the like, oh, I didn't realize that was you that I was hitting on. Like,
yeah. So the intention, I believe, is that he doesn't know who she is. That's why she's in the dark, and she's kept in the dark, and that's why when she comes up to him, he's like, "Oh,"
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
is because he doesn't know it's her. He literally is just trying to pick up on this hitch. He's like, "Oh, another lady," and he has to like chase after him instead of them chasing after him, like the great Tom Atkins.
I can't even think about anything because I feel like we just skipped over the fact that this whole movie started with a Fall Out Boy song.
Oh yeah, that is true. That is true. It definitely places it in an era.
Yeah, it does.
I actually made a notation about that as well. Like, I feel like, especially in the very beginning, you hit it right on the nose. It was too commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't like, you know, you could tell that they were looking to sell a soundtrack to this movie. As opposed to just trying to pick a good song that fit. They're like, what can we get out of this?
It's really funny as I was watching it. Not to give away my I'm not going to give away my rating, but it's not probably a surprise that I don't really like this movie. But I remember when it started and that bit happens, and I'm about 15 minutes into the film, 20 minutes. I had the thought, because of the style of filmmaking that we're in, and I had to literally send a text to you guys, and I said, were all horror movies in the 2000s this bad? Because I think Derek said, "Yep." I mean, there's good ones. We'll get to some good ones, but in that era. But yeah, like the Fall Out Boy starts, and then we're introduced also to his friend Spooner. Which, guys, Spooner was killing me in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, he's a very vapid character.
He was a throwaway character. Actually, I'm really shocked he survived till the end.
That was shocking.
Yeah, I mean, his character is kind of pointless and is a terrible person. I mean, he's just flat out terrible.
And he's clueless also.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Do you guys recall the scene where they find the boat and they go on the boat and they're looking around and they see all these dead bodies and they find him and he's in the freezer and they're like, oh no. And then, I mean, it has no jump scare ability to it. He's just like, and his eyes open.
What, dude? I fucking jumped out of the couch when that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so scary.
Lydia called me and said, I don't know if I can finish this movie. It's so scary.
Actually,
yes.
I text you guys, and I just want to throw this up on the screen if I can. But this line when they're on the ship, let's see if I can get it to look.
Yes. Damn, you sexy as hell when you mad. Yes. Yes, absolutely. That's the Spoon. That's him and Spooner at the beginning, and immediately the dialogue is terrible in this movie, like flat out terrible. And then we're introduced to Stevie, played by Selma Blair, whom I love. I love Selma Blair. I love her as an actress. I love her as a person. She's great. And I think she would have been. She's a good casting choice for the role of Stevie. I don't think that's a bad casting choice at all. But this version of Stevie, guys, what are your thoughts? Starting with you, Lydia.
I immediately, I heard the voice on the radio, and after just watching the old one, I was like, man, this voice just hits a little bit different. And I'm it's the time period again of you probably don't hear that voice in 2005, that old voice. It's a kind of classic, like, sexy radio voice, and she does have, like, a really great voice, but it's just not the same.
Derek.
So, Jamie knows my little phobia that I have in real life with, cigarettes. But you could tell, like, the 1980s, she had that little bit of a raspy voice, that little smoker voice, you know what I'm saying? And it worked for her. It really gave her that, like, lower tone and that raspy, it was pretty sexy. He didn't get that with Selma in this one. She definitely has some roles where she, fills that role, but I do think it was a little lacking in this.
Yeah, my biggest problem is the directing of her character, like the way she's expected to act. So she's trying to, be sexy. There's a scene where she's like into the microphone, like, and she's kind of doing this with her mouth. You know what I mean? Like trying to be like super pouty and sexy, and it comes off as awkward.
I'm just saying, I'm glad that we have that on video, what you just did.
I'm glad too.
That'll be on a highlight reel someday.
One day I'm going to show my children. And they'll be proud.
Yep.
You're lucky I didn't try to eat the microphone. This version of Stevie is, I don't feel as strong as the Stevie Wayne we knew in the other one. And while we're talking about Stevie, let's talk about the new Dan. Because the new Dan O'Bannon sucks ass.
Yeah.
I don't even remember him at all. And I just watched this last night.
He's lame. Like instead, you know how, 80s, we talked about it. 80s Dan he was a little creepy on her, but not like disturbing. He was kind of cutesy, crushy. And he's just like, oh, maybe we can meet sometime, blah, blah, little flirty. This Dan sends her a webcam.
Well, it's the early 2000s. That's what you do.
I mean, who does he think she is? Shannon Elizabeth? Like, what's going on here?
That was a good reference. I only had one note about Dan, and all I wrote was Big Dan. And when he died, you're just like, adios.
Oh, his death.
Yeah.
We'll get to let's spend a second to talk about the deaths. First, I guess let's talk about a couple of the other characters that are introduced. We're introduced to the father character in this one, which is way different than the original and way more cliched.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you guys feel like the priest in this movie was super
100%.
cliched?
Yeah. Well, and, from the very beginning, it's not like he was discovering the truth. It was passed down from his father. And so it's not a revelation, if you will, to play on that biblical aspect. It wasn't a revelation. It was there was some scenes where it's like he has Tourette's. And you're just like, they were killers. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, there's definitely like a weird thing about him. They like made him just the crazy preacher that you see in horror movies all the time. So they're reducing from a character who was discovering these situations and feeling guilt for what his ancestors did to somebody that already knows about it and is, just a crazy guy. And we'll get to the revelation of this movie later, which is a whole nother ball game of stupid. But also, Old Man Mansion in this movie. Like, what the hell? So gone is this guy that tells these kids this great ghost story, and is replaced by a dude that wears like goggles on his head and walks around with a metal detector.
Hey, everybody has a retirement plan.
What did you guys think of this character in particular?
I didn't even realize it was the same character. That's what I thought of him. You and I were talking, and you brought it up. I'm like, oh man, I didn't even realize it was the same guy. He was a throwaway guy.
Lydia?
Yeah, I don't know. I liked him compared to all the other characters.
That's how weak these characters are. Because we're failing to mention our leading lady, Maggie Grace, plays Elizabeth in this movie, who is 150% a completely different character than she was in the original. In this movie, she's from the town. She's returning home. Her mother's part of it. And by the way, spoiler alert, okay.
You don't know. You don't know.
You don't
They
know.
don't explain it.
So we will get into the. I don't want to. Do you guys want to talk about the ending right now? Do you want to talk about the revelation, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, let's go through a little bit more of
Okay.
The film.
Okay. Let's talk about the kills real fast while we have it second. The kills in this movie are what would you use to describe them, Lydia? What would you use to describe the kills in this movie?
Lame.
That's a good word. Textbook. Yeah, like nothing memorable. All done with CG.
Oh, there's one that's memorable.
What's that?
The guy we were just talking about. He had literally the worst death scene in history because it was like following this rope off the beach and then goes into the water and then the fog rolls all over him and you're just like, well, that was really anticlimactic.
And that was probably the best one.
Yeah,
it probably was. Yeah, I was like, man, a ship's gonna like roll over his head or something. Nope, just the fog.
So in this movie, I mean, we kind of were talking about it with the 80 fog. One of the things we had like a kind of a question about, and kind of one of our little problems with the movie is it wasn't clear to define what the ghost powers were. Like we talked about how we didn't know what, so is it just the revenants or is it just, do they control the fog supernatural to itself? We had a bunch of questions that we kind of answered, but there's some that were still left a little bit vague, which is fine. It's a ghost story. It should be kind of vague. This one has there's no rhyme or reason at all. So they can just move physical objects with their mind, essentially. Like, I mean, they move a knife to kill the ladies in the boat. They use the glass to kill the preacher. And then he randomly catches the one dude on fire with a book or a contract.
That knife was like the dumbest thing.
Actually, that was a throwback. That knife was used so they circle back to the boat scene to give more, a better explanation of that. I'm pretty sure that was the same knife that was used to kill one of the people on the boat in the exact same way. So there was a callback to it, but I mean, you could blink and miss it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I blinked because I missed that. But
the really execution is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, the girls get thrown out of the window; they're just dead, and you're like, "Oh, okay, well that was easy." It was like the most confusing death scene, and then the guy hid in the freezer and
apparently the fog you can't go into the freezer.
Yeah, it's a lot like the Blob.
Yeah, which we will talk about next week.
Yeah. And those girls, by the way, everybody's wearing jackets, literally, through the beginning of this movie, except for those two girls that are on the boat dancing in bikinis.
Oh my gosh! And
it just seems so out of place.
Tom Welling is wearing this giant sweater when everybody is clearly comfortable, just wearing shirts outside, and he's wearing this massive sweater.
Yeah, it's a turtleneck. Yeah, it's supposed to kind of be a throwback to the original, where Nick's wearing kind of like a sweater with this cool jacket.
They did so many throwbacks, and none of them worked.
None of them land. Well, because also his stature is completely different than Tom Atkins. Tom Welling is much younger, less hot.
Subjective.
Back me up here, Lydia. Back me up.
Yeah, I'm gonna back up Jamie on that one.
See how it is. Choosing sides.
But
I mean, he is sexy when he's mad, though.
Sexy as hell, even.
Yeah.
He is sexy as hell. Yeah, I mean, the kills just completely back to what we originally started talking about here. The kills lacked all creativity, and even the ones that were semi-creative, the execution was not good. There's a lot. I wrote this down. There is a lot of throwing in this movie. People get thrown in like a fuck ton in this movie. Like, and it's always slow motion or forward. There's a bunch of people diving out of windows in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of window diving and thrown into glass. That's like a...
It's called action, Jamie.
I dropped my pencil.
My bad. You were gonna say something, then you just quit, so I paused.
Well, yeah, I wanted to let you. I wanted to let you finish. Yeah, so this encapsulates exactly what you're talking about. The death scenes were so bad that the shower scene sucked. Like the shower scene with Elizabeth, and it was the worst. How do you mess that up, man?
Oh, dude, that scene disturbed me actually because it's just so gratuitous and not needed. But it's also so PG-13 and awkward.
Yeah,
yes,
the dialogue
awkward.
leading up to it too was like, he was like, "Let's go back to the house and have some wild and crazy sex or something." Like, made a comment about wild sex, and then they're just like in the shower, just like touching each other.
Well, I guess that's their kink. Their kink. I mean, they haven't explored enough. Their kink is slow, touchy-feely shower. I bet you they only got to third base by the feel of those. I mean, there may be some touching going on, but then there's this really awkward moment at the end of the shower scene where they do like a cut of her and she's like just staring forlornly forward, like she's lost in time. And I was like, not the movie for this.
She is always doing that too.
I know. It's like, what is going on? So yeah, you're right, Derek. Glad you brought that up. That's a terrible one. So we start to unravel bits of the plot. We get kind of recreations of certain scenes. So they kind of do the recreation of the Elizabeth Dane being the board of the Elizabeth Dane being found, right? But in this version, it's what? What does the boy find instead?
A hairbrush.
Hairbrush, right? The hairbrush, the mysterious hairbrush. Mm. So they kind of bring that back, that scene, but it's like if it's that scene if it were done badly. It's the best way I can describe it.
Well, and the reference to the ship is always like anytime that they show a computer screen, it's like glitch Dane.
Yeah.
I just thought Dane Cook was coming to do some comedy, guys.
Were you looking out for the big Kool-Aid dude?
Just like Dane. Yeah, that is weird. That is a weird thing. Why the hell was that in there?
Well, the only other reference to the ship was the symbols. Like there was that little drawing.
Which, of course, when she catches fire, when the hairbrush catches fire, it burns those drawings into... Come on,
me and Jake were laughing so hard at that scene. Like, we paused it and we were looking at the actual papers that were up there, and it's clearly just the symbols are printed on that paper. They're just printed with some scorch marks in it.
Maybe it's 3D printed arson.
It's something is what it is.
That was a terrible joke.
Also, I just ignore him now. I'm used to him. Over the last 25 years, I've just learned to ignore them.
So rude.
But the hairbrush itself, during the scene, there's a shot of it starting to catch fire, and it's clearly just this hairbrush with the red LED light in it. And it looks so, because the way it's shot, they didn't shoot it the right angle to make it look. It just looks. I'm just it's clearly just a light inside that brush. What's going on here? And then of course the scene happens and it's not very good. And then she immediately calls her son and she's like, Where did you find that? Oh, by the beach. Don't go to the beach you can't go to the beach until I get home. Don't pick up anything else from the beach. Okay, Mom. Who was that? Nobody. I'm going to go down to the beach.
Yeah.
You little bastard.
It honestly sounds like something my son would say.
Sounds like something we would say as teenagers.
That is true. Hey,
But
I do want to get this in because I thought that this was one of the highlights of the film. So before they go back and they have that really awkward shower sex scene, they're driving through. Is it then that the initial fog rolls in, and slowly as they're driving through town, the lights start to go out behind them. Do you recall that one? I thought that was
later in the movie, I do believe. But
okay.
Yeah,
I liked that. I liked that scene too. I feel like that is around that when they're like going back to that house.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
I was so distracted by the terrible dialogue that
I know the dialogue is just bad.
Oh, that was almost really cool.
The fog itself. Let me talk about the fog itself. Looks terrible in this movie. It's all CG. It just looks bad. It looks like just a cloud of CG coming at you.
There was one scene where Jake was like, "Oh, it looks good right there."
Yeah, it's very few and far between. When people when the old man interacts with it, I think they actually use fog in that scene. But for the most of it, it's just terrible CG fog. And it's like, come on, man, get a fog machine.
Yeah, it's lazy.
Which I don't think the old one was perfect when it came to the fog either. So
no,
but they at least had
the fog was there. Yeah, at least there was actually fog.
Yeah.
Lazy is the best way to describe it because it's, I mean, not for the special effects people that tried to do it. I mean, they worked their butts off probably to make it look good, but it's just like, it's like when they were making it like, okay, and here there's going to be fog. Okay, let's continue on instead of, hey, let's try to figure out how to make fog in this scene, or at least some fog so they have reference. So anyway, I guess it's time to talk about the backstory of this film, of the founding of Antonio Bay. So in this version, it's not the centennial of Antonio Bay like it was in the 1980 version. In this one, they're just building statues to the leaders.
Yeah, they're unveiling.
Yeah, they're unveiling statues. Which why they decided to do it now, who knows? But that's the big thing. They're unveiling the founders, which are the four guys that we see at the beginning.
That statue was way bigger in this one.
Yes, it was. There is four of them.
Yeah,
four big statues, and so we get the unveiling of the statues. That's the whole plot. And I guess that's why the fog decides to come back. That and Elizabeth comes back, which we'll get to. So in this version of it, basically the four founders go onto the ship and just straight up murder folks.
Well, yeah, and there's a little bit more to it. Like they had an agreement where they were going to sell part of the island
to the lepers.
To the lepers, and it was a double cross essentially. And then they go on and they rob the entire ship and then take all the gold. And then as a going away present, they send them off with a fire brigade. But anyway, so they set the ship on fire and they kill everybody. So it's a double cross. And then they built the town on the land that they were supposed to inherit, the lepers.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually, I think that the backstory behind all of it was a little bit more explained in this movie compared to the previous. I actually enjoyed that part.
I would say it's maybe a little more explained. It's the same backstory, just with added bits.
Yeah, more detail.
But I would argue that you don't need that detail. If you have an imagination, you just hear the story, you know what's going on. You don't need to be spoon-fed exactly every little...
Like when they're in the restaurant and he's like, here, drink this, you'll feel better. When she's like clearly freaking out. And they're just like, they look up and they notice the pictures on the wall.
Oh, God. God damn it, the pictures.
It's like, oh, I wish they would have just not made that scene at all.
Look at these pictures. Before and after.
Yeah.
Before and after. Yeah, horrible.
They did it so many times.
Yeah, they're like, okay, audience, are you getting it? We're going to do it 5 more times so then you understand before and after.
Really bad.
Yeah, really cringe, really bad. So I would argue that the backstory, while fine, is just not. It doesn't need to be fleshed out so much because people aren't stupid. I've never
No, there's
watched.
definitely like a tipping point, and Lydia, I think you hit it right on the nail where they're like before and after. The boat scene and the conversation and the double cross, and that's more isolated what I was referring to. I enjoyed that aspect of it. I think it fulfilled the story a little bit more.
I mean, I think
agree.
it's.
I agree with that, and I think that I kind of thought that in the original that there might have been a connection like that because the hitchhiker's name is Elizabeth. And I was just like, that's the name of the ship, that's the name of the girl. Is there a connection there? And there never was. And that's fine. And then in this one, they're like, yeah, we're going to make it a huge connection.
Well, in this one,
they don't even pay it off.
This one is no. This one, the connection is what's the stupid? That's the word I was looking for. Connection is stupid. So the big plot reveal in this movie is that Elizabeth, a character who is the daughter of the descendants of one of the forefathers, by the way, is somehow the reincarnation of Blake's wife, which, by the way, dude was cradle robbing hardcore.
Yeah, no, I said that to my wife, Quincy. I was like, yeah, he's robbing the cradle.
I mean, he was like, what, 67? And she was all of 20? Like, good Lord.
The original Hugh Hefner.
So, yeah, the big reveal is that she is the reincarnation of him. So we start getting hints of this. And one of the things I liked least about this movie is that all of the interesting things that happen in the original film all happen to Elizabeth in this movie. Mm-hmm. Basically, it just turns from being what I really like about the original Fog is that it's a true ensemble piece. There's not a lead. The leads are Nick. The lead is Stevie, Elizabeth, the father. They're all equal leads. You know, their stories are interweaving. In this one, it becomes around the middle part. It just becomes the Elizabeth show, and a really poorly constructed Ring ripoff, basically, where she's trying to uncover the mystery, and it's that whole J horror kind of vibe that was popular at that time.
Mm-hmm.
In the scene where they find Spooner on the ship, right? They find Spooner on the ship, and Spooner had that camera because he's being a creep to those women, making them dance in sub-zero temperatures in their bikinis. He's recording it. So he says, "Hey, keep a hold of this." So Nick's like, "Hey, keep a hold of this in case we need it." Instead of, I don't know, turning it over to the police, because that's what you do with evidence. So then they could look at it and say, "Oh, there's some crazy stuff going here, but this guy clearly did not kill these girls."
No,
or that guy.
Yeah, and I thought that too. At that point, Nick doesn't really know what that video holds. So it could clear him, but it also could indict him, and maybe he wants to review it. But yeah, I'm with you. You turn that over, and then when she actually, this part made no sense whatsoever.
No.
She reviews the footage, then she falls, loses the footage, and then that's it. It's done.
Yeah, what's really...
That had no purpose.
It's so stupid. She watches and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to walk across this with the camera." Oh!
Yeah.
Yeah, well, then she finds the journal, which she's like freaked out about and tries to tell Nick, and he is like, "I don't have time to listen to you right now."
Don't talk to me, woman.
Nick.
Elizabeth, what happened?
Can we talk outside?
No, it's not a good time.
It's important.
No, I can't. I can't right now. Spooner's really in trouble. Just give me a minute.
I'm busy talking to my friend who thinks I'm sexy.
Yeah.
And it's not a tractor, so we're heading in the right direction.
It's just doesn't make any sense why that she would just walk across with the camera, put it down, and then do your like high wire act. I don't really weird and silly. And that's when we first start getting our glimpses that she is involved with Elizabeth, because she falls in the water in this really long slow motion scene where she's underwater. And the scene lasted 45 minutes, I think.
I think I fell asleep and then woke back up and it was still going.
It was long. So we find out that she's the reincarnation of Elizabeth, right? So then the fog hits town and wreaks havoc on the town. The survivors all gather into the church, right? Like they do in the original, except this one actually they gather in the town hall, right? Not the church, the town hall in this one. So they gather in the town hall, and inexplicably, Spooner runs in. Hey guys! I watched it and I laughed out loud. I was like, what the hell is he doing here?
Is that when he sees the pirate ship or the ship?
Yeah,
the ghost
I
ship.
saw it on the dock.
That's when I was like, oh my god, this guy is dumb.
Yeah. And
he was like, what is that? It's like, you already saw that.
You know what? Yeah, you saw it earlier. I don't understand this.
You already know what that is.
when you see the by the way, when you see the ghost ship in dock, all I could think of is Cheech Marin from Ghostbusters 2, where the Titanic arrives and he says, better late than never. That's all I could think about.
Yeah, when the ghost ship, when you see it, I had hardcore like a recall to Ghost Ship.
Oh,
you remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Much better movie than this, actually.
Yeah, don't watch this movie and just go watch Ghost Ship.
Ghost Ship. Ghost Ship. Scream Bloody Movies approved. Now that we got our plug for Ghost Ship out of the way.
Did you guys do you recall anything that was memorable about the morgue scene?
Yeah, I remember it being not as good as the original.
It definitely was not as good as the original. And there was a scene when the corpse gets up and it walks over to Elizabeth, and he's like, what he says something, oh, blood for blood.
Dude. So awful.
And she just stands there and lets that happen.
Like,
what are you doing?
I made a note. That guy had to have the worst breath ever.
Oh my god.
That
right
scene,
in her ear.
That scene is just atrocious. I literally laughed out loud during the morgue scene because my wife was sitting next to me watching it, and she fell asleep. She fell asleep pretty early. And there was a couple scenes where I laughed out loud, and she was like, "This isn't very scary, is it?" And I said, "No, it's not."
It's probably a perfect movie for her.
Yeah, she goes, "I'm gonna go lay down." I was like, "Okay, yeah, you go in the other room. I don't want to put you through this hell." And so she goes and lays down. But the morgue scene is one of them that I think I woke her up laughing because he just stands. It's just so bad, so badly done. He like stands up in the blood for blood, and I was like, he didn't need to say anything, you know. He just, what would be scary is if he stood up, fell over, and then wrote some shit on the ground, because that was a lot scarier last time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the morgue scene is no bueno. Then we get to everybody's in the museum, right? Everybody's in the museum, and they start arguing amongst themselves. And then we get to see the Revenants clearly. And boy, do they look bad in this movie.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, CGI in this movie in general was just atrocious. So terrible. No part of it was good. Even the like transparent knocking, which by the way, using the hooks was so much better. Now they got that like little knocker. It's so bad.
Yeah, they look really bad. They're not near as memorable like what you talked about last week, Lydia, with them standing there with their glowing red eyes, and they looked cool, especially with the fog and the shadow. These ones look like they were rejected off the set of Ghostbusters. Like, it was like they were like, you're not even scary enough for our comedy, so you got to go to another movie.
Yeah, and you're talking about Ghostbusters, the remake.
Oh,
Yeah.
they look just about as bad as those ones.
Yeah.
So Blake comes in, and people start being killed via throwing. I think there's a couple of throwing deaths or pulling deaths, right? I mean, does Elizabeth's mom get pulled? Isn't that how she dies?
Yeah.
She gets
out of the window.
pulled out of the window. So it's like there's another window, and then the priest gets thrown into a couple cases before he uses the glass to impale him in what is the worst scene of this movie, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
The priest's death is the worst scene in this movie. That terrible slow motion, no blood, awful fake glass going through him is unforgivable.
Well, and the fact that he's in like a glass tornado kind of vortex thing and only 3 pieces of glass touch him.
I was confused why they didn't just, like, the tornado of glass is a cool idea around him. I don't know why they just didn't bring him in and like they all impale him and then he falls. That's what I would have done. Because it would create more of like a blunt scare, and like, you'd like, oh, but instead they're like, and then he's like acting like he's getting shot by a 50 cal. Oh.
They
And I was just like,
slowly.
Yeah,
like,
except it was like, What did you think about this scene, Derek? I think Lydia and I made our thoughts known.
No, I'm with you. I thought that it was poorly done and underwhelming, I would say, is a good way to phrase that, because you're right. There's so many more things they could have done with that. More elaborate. I'm sure they were like, hey, budget constraints. We'll just, in CGI, we'll, just act like you're getting shot. We'll fix it up. That's a wrap for the day.
It's going to look great. Let's move on. So, yeah. Then the survivors. So, the priest's brother, which, by the way, in this version, he has a brother who is part of the town chair, who's hanging out with Elizabeth's mom the whole movie. He replaces essentially the Nancy Loomis character from the first movie. Mm-hmm. So he gets thrown out of the window. No joke, literally thrown out of the window, because that's what happens in this movie. People get thrown a lot. So thrown out of the window, and then he starts begging John Blake, and there's this really weird scene where he writes the contract and hands it to him, and he catches fire, I'm guessing, so that because it's a callback to him, their ancestors catching them on fire, mm-hmm. which I get, but it's not very well executed, really, I guess is the best way to say it. It's not very clear what's going on. And instead it just seems like he's, psych, you double-cross me, I double-cross you back, you're on fire. And so, of course, what is the fire, guys? It's CG. Mm-hmm. And super...
That wasn't real fire?
Not when it first starts. I mean, I know it's surprising because it moves just like real fire. But so he's dead. And we forgot to mention that at this point, before this, Nick and Elizabeth go to Stevie's house to save her son. Mm-hmm. That whole scene happens, except instead of it being the climax of the movie, basically the big climax of the movie, like it is in the original, it's kind of fairly mundane. What do you guys think of the babysitter version in this? The babysitter death and the whole version in this movie?
I have a couple of thoughts.
Go ahead, Derek.
So, one, not necessarily related to her death or anything, but the Jeopardy scene. I rewound it because I was like, what just happened? What did that say? Did anybody catch this?
Yeah.
And it was about the Swift advocates for poor children to be eaten to combat poverty.
Yeah, I
It
did
was
hear
a Jeopardy question. I looked it up because I was like, is this even real? No, it's a satire piece that was done. But that one was interesting to say the least. And then was it here where they have the dish scene? Like someone was doing dishes and like the hand comes up out of the water and attacks them.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
yes.
the babysitter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
I actually
Stupid.
liked that scene.
I
I thought that
was
one
so confused by
pretty
that
decent.
scene. I thought the babysitter was creepy in this one. I
was
did.
his
I
aunt.
was
Yeah.
like,
Wasn't it the
I was
kid's
like-
aunt?
as soon as I saw her, I was like, ugh. It was like she like was not like expressing anything, but she was just like kind of like giving this energy of like staring into your soul. Like I don't understand her at all. And her death was like the most confusing thing to me. I don't get that. That was the coolest death. And it was on a character that you don't know anything about.
She had like 3 scenes.
Yeah. She just
Yeah.
watched Jeopardy. That's it.
Yeah. Everybody's got
looks
one of those
creepily-
ants.
Well, I know you do.
I do have one or two.
That death was crazy. Are you guys not like even shocked at that, or like what happened?
Yeah,
there?
I mean, it's. I think it's supposed to be that she catches fire too somehow, because whenever she brings her hands up after she was doing the dishes, and her hands start to like.
Yeah.
turn all,
she like
she got
falls
burned.
apart, like disintegrates so fast. Like the father didn't do that.
No.
When he has the
it's-
contract, they could have done something cool like that, but instead they just like let him just like burn on the ground.
Yeah.
And this lady is in in a house, and she's like, just like ash all of a sudden. Like what?
Yeah.
That was
yeah.
cool.
It's very bizarre, like the fact that they decided to use that death on her, and like, why does it do that is also interesting. I mean,
Why doesn't it do to anyone else?
Yeah, and why did it do it to? So I guess if you said it's her aunt, it would make sense because in this version, all of the main characters are descendants of these people, which was not a thing in the original. But in this one, all of them were descendants. So, Stevie Wayne, her great-great-grandfather was part of the town. And Nick Castle's great-great-grandfather. And Elizabeth's great-great-grandfather. And the father, Malone's great-great-grandfather. So, if that's really her aunt, then it would make sense why they give her, like, a death that is for, like, the traitors. But if she's not her aunt, then why do that to that woman? Like
we've got one we're saving for a really special moment. And then they ran out of time and like, hey, we got one more character. Let's just.
It is her aunt. It's Aunt Connie. So I guess that's why. Also, gonna say it's a dick move that they killed the dogs.
Oh my
not
god!
a fan of that dead dog.
That was honestly okay. The guy that owned the dogs was my favorite character in this movie.
Yeah, because he cared about his dogs.
I felt so bad for him. Like he literally broke my heart. And,
all he wanted was his dogs.
Wait,
yeah,
he was
leprosy.
He was talking to Nick, and his face was all like bandaged up, and he just looked so sad. And he was like, Nick's talking to him, literally does not ask him at all.
What the hell
his
happened to your
bleeding
face, man?
Yeah.
Well, that might
Does
be a
not
rude.
mention it. And he when he walks away,
thing
he's
to
just
say.
like,
Yeah.
like he's like so sad that
He's like, I've got to go back. Those dogs are the only things I have.
yeah. Even before that whole
Mhm.
scene, he was like so sad that he didn't notice that his face was messed up. Like
Yeah, and his son's dead because, of course, the fog kills his son because his son is a descendant because everybody in this movie is related. It's so twisty.
That poor guy and his dogs deserves an award because they were the best part.
So it's time we talked about the revelation, but now let's talk about the payoff, quote unquote payoff, to Elizabeth's story. Derek, I'll let you lead with this one because I think you had some thoughts on this.
I do, and before I do that, I want to do like a little rant that you're gonna maybe enjoy. Payoff? You talk about payoffs? Payoffs? There was no payoff in this. Really, I didn't think so. It was just hey, she is walking away, and then she turns back, and then they like all the ghosts turn and look at her, and she walks over, and then she's a ghost. It made no sense whatsoever. That was the one thing that they really failed to connect to make the movie make sense in general. Was there was something missing? Because I would have expected her to be some sort of a descendant of someone on the ship, which she wasn't. But yeah, it was just like, you connect the dots, make up whatever you want, fill in this backstory.
Lydia, your
What?
thoughts on this?
I was like, what?
Your thoughts on this?
What do I think? I'm conflicted because I kind of liked it. I liked the ghost. I was rooting for the ghost, and I was like, if I had the choice, I would just go be with that guy. I would go be with the ghost. I would turn to the ghost life.
I hear what you're saying, and I would agree if it made any bit of sense. But it does not, to Derek's point. It literally makes no sense. It's like what doesn't make sense is that how is she the rebirth of Elizabeth? Like, how is she, her reincarnation? But yet all these other folks don't get reincarnations. And how is she a reincarnation when she's literally a descendant of people that aren't even related to Elizabeth?
They could have put a 5-second scene in this movie to connect it and make it make sense. And that if they would have like made a scene where they've set the ship on fire and this lady is holding a baby and she like hands it to one of them, and just out of mercy, they're like, they take the baby and take it off the ship. That right there is their out.
Yes, but then they can't.
That minor.
But then it would be it would be like his granddaughter, so she wouldn't be able to like join him for the sexy ghost lovemaking that is apparently supposed to be happening.
Hey, this was the 1680s. Anything was possible.
I don't think it was that long ago, buddy.
I just chose a random date, but
they're lucky that they didn't see if she could float.
Yeah, was this in Kentucky?
Did she read? Good Lord.
Oh man.
So then my biggest problem with the whole movie is the actual ending. The actual ending here. So we talked a little bit about Stevie. She goes through some of this stuff, and then for some reason she randomly leaves. She's in her car. It breaks down. Blah blah. There's this with her being trapped underwater, which we didn't mention. Mm-hmm. In the original movie, Stevie can't leave the the lighthouse, which is great tension building, because then she's stuck and her kid's at a completely different location, and she has to rely on these people to get them, and she's losing her mind. She's scared. The work builds the tension. This one, she leaves. The water scene happens, which apparently was hell to shoot, according to Selma Blair, which of course it would be. And then she shows up and she's with everybody during the final act. So their survivors are Nick, Spooner, Stevie, and her son. And so after the whole story's wrapped up, after Elizabeth just joins the ghosts, and the ghosts are just like, let's bounce. Like, they didn't even say, well, there's Castle's still here. There's one descendant left. They're like, nah, we're good. Drop the mic. We're out.
Not only that, but how are you going to be somebody who survives that and then stays on the island?
Right, and that's where I was getting to.
I'd have been like out there hitchhiking. Maybe that's where Nick is going. He's like, I got nothing left here. I'm leaving.
No, he goes on the boat. You wouldn't get my ass near the ocean again.
I would get on that boat to get off the island, but then once I got on dry land, I'm good. But none of them, not a one of them. Stevie goes back to her radio show.
I don't think it's an island, Derek. I think it's like a coastal city because she was hitchhiking.
That's
from like New York, right? Isn't that where she left to?
Yeah, she went to New York.
So I think it's a coastal city and not an island. So you would not find me on the water at all. After ghost pirates just came and killed a bunch of people I knew.
Yeah.
And then Stevie has the wherewithal, after all the trauma she's seen, she has a professionalism not to miss her morning broadcasts.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, man. I'd have been out of there. I'd have been calling people, hey, I got a book I want to write. I didn't believe it. But it wouldn't be on the island, that's for sure.
It's a coastal city, Derek.
It is a coastal city. And that was... keep getting that one wrong. What are you going to do?
It happens. It happens. So now it's time for us to give our ratings for this particular masterpiece of a film. Derek, we'll start with you. What would you give Rupert Wainwright's 2005 remake of The Fog?
I'm not going to go as hard on it as IMDb. I think it's got like a 3 point something
3.7
on IMDb. 3.7. I would give it a 5.5. 5.5. It definitely could have improved in many ways, but I did enjoy watching it.
Derek with the high rating. Lydia, what would you give this movie?
I was gonna say 2. I'm gonna give it a 2. I mean, I gave Pet Sematary remake a 2, and I think this one is like right there with it. I think this movie would probably be great for younger kids. So maybe there's an audience there that but I don't know if younger kids today would be able to watch something from 2005. But maybe.
I know
I don't know children, so
I
cannot answer for them.
I know as a 35-year-old man, I was having trouble watching something from 2005. I can tell you that. Okay, so, guys.
With a 2.
My pumpkin rating is going to surprise you guys. It's a 7. I'm just kidding. I am just kidding. I would give this one I'd give it a 3. A 3.5, we'll say. Because I don't want to quite give it a 4, but I don't want to necessarily give it a 3. I'd give it here's why. I think it's just as bad as the 2019 Pet Sematary. But I don't think it's as miserable of an experience as watching the 2019 Pet Sematary. I think that this one is not as dour. It's not as depressing. It's not as it's not a slog to get through. It moves at a pretty decent clip. I feel like the pace after the first 25 minutes or so, because the first 25 minutes or so are a chore to get through. It's painful. But after that 25-minute mark, it kind of goes at a pretty decent clip. Whereas we talked about the issues with the Pet Sematary remake, where it was kind of similar, except it was front-loaded with just boringness. And then the end was just nonstop scenes that weren't terrible, I guess. So I would give this 3.5 out of 10 pumpkins. So, I mean, Derek's high with his 5. You're 2 at 5.5. You're 2 pumpkins over what I rated this movie. Mm-hmm. So you really like it. I'm probably going to buy it for you on Blu-ray.
Well, I wouldn't say but I couldn't find it on any streaming platform except for something I had to pay for. And I was like, man, do I buy this movie? I don't want to buy it. do I rent this movie? Don't really want to rent it. So I got Stars. So it's
Me
kind of
too.
a plug for Stars. I was like, I'm going to sign up for Stars for a month because at least I'll get something out of this.
It's like 99 cents right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have Stars. That's where I watch it as well. I watched it on Stars. I think what we should do is pitch in Lydia so Derek can get a tattoo of The Fog since this is his new favorite film.
It's terrible.
I'm trying to imagine what that tattoo would look like.
Well, it would clearly be
Tom
Nick
Welling
Castle
with his-
taking
yeah,
off
with
his
his
shirt
shirt.
that says, "You're
Yeah.
sexy as hell when you're mad."
Yeah.
You and I will get tattoos, Lydia, of Tom Atkins.
There we go.
That's just all it is.
That's all you need.
It's
That
just
might-
Tom Atkins.
That might be a bad
No
idea.
text needed.
You should. That should be your next tattoo, is a Tom Atkins one. Drinking a beer.
While driving.
While driving.
Yeah. And then you should put your quote underneath it. Is he attractive? I think he is.
Oh, that's the t-shirt.
Oh, that's the t-shirt. Is he attractive? I think he is. Like how you wrestled with it. You're like, I don't know. Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
Most definitely.
that's so funny. Also, I wanted to point out that because since we forgot to point this out in the last episode, that Nick Castle's character is named after the Nick Castle who plays Michael Myers in Halloween.
Correct. It's John Carpenter's friend Nick Castle, who's also a film director, who directed like quite a few movies. He is and Dan O'Bannon, which we mentioned last week, is the writer of Return of the Living Dead and Alien. Now I don't know who Spooner is named after in this film.
He's an original character.
He's named after the famous Spooner.
That must have been what Tom Welling and Maggie Grace were doing in the shower.
They definitely weren't having sex, that's for sure. Oh, you guys do know who plays who plays John Blake in this movie, right? Does he look familiar to you guys? You've seen him in tons of stuff.
Yeah. I was actually I should have looked that up because I know I've seen him.
His name, I don't want to mispronounce it. It's Rade Surbeja, and he is in Mission Impossible 2 as the scientist at the beginning. That Ethan is, that when the facemaker thing, all that stuff happens. The scientist. He's also the homeless guy in Batman Begins that Bruce Wayne gives him his coat at the beginning.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
that guy. God, he's in so much stuff. He's in Eyes Wide Shut. Derek, your brother, would know what scene he's in that. He's in Taken 2. He's the main villain in Taken 2.
Yeah, I was going to say he was in Taken.
Yeah.
Baba Vega, or whatever, however it pronounces it.
Yep.
The Baba Yaga. Maybe
That's
I'm saying that wrong.
that is John Wick.
Baba
Wait,
Yaga.
what did I say? Or what'd you say?
Taken.
They're
Which stars Maggie Grace, of course.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that.
I kind of wish halfway through this movie the ghosts were like attacking Elizabeth, and then Liam Neeson would have showed up and said, "What I have is a particular set of skills. Make me a nightmare to ghosts like you. If you go back onto your ship, that'll be the end of it. But if you don't, I will hunt you. I will find you, and I will re-kill you." So, folks, that was Rupert Wainwright's 2005 remake of The Fog, which, by the way, is the last film that Rupert Wainwright has directed. And I mean, coincidence?
Yeah, I would say that's a negative. Definitely not a coincidence.
Mr. Wainwright, if you're listening, I think you're a very talented man. You just missed the boat on this one.
Ooh.
Get
Yeah, you
it?
did there.
Because it's not a ghost ship, though, which you should tune in and watch Ghost Ship. Recommended by Screen Bloody Movies.
Yes.
All right, any final thoughts? That's for you guys. Any final thoughts?
Okay, I have some final thoughts. I feel like I always have like a couple things in my notes that I'm like,
Get to them.
we missed this completely while we were talking. So the scene with Andy when he's in his room, the babysitter just died. He's like terrified. He sees the fog coming and he grabs this tiny roll of Scotch tape.
I knew that's what you were gonna say.
I loved that part so
Oh,
much.
you loved it. I
I
made
laughed.
fun of it hardcore.
No, I laughed so hard, but I was like, that would have been me as a kid.
I started laughing at that, and Quincy's like, "What that?" My wife, she's like, "What that? That's genius." I was like, "Yeah, if it was duct tape."
It's Scotch tape, folks. Hey, he's a kid. He's trying. He's doing his best. He's living his best life.
Say hello. Say hello.
Did he? Hi, Radar. Did he ask for a stomach pounder in this version?
No, he did
I
not.
was listening for it.
Missed opportunity.
No stomach pounder.
Changing my rating to a 2.
Changing it. Oh.
What other? Did you have any other notes?
I was a little distracted now. Here, get down. There we go. Okay. I guess my only other note that we missed is actually, well, I wrote down that this felt like a bad Supernatural episode.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes,
Like-
it does.
Like,
I felt it was.
Supernatural would have done it better.
I felt like it was a Scooby-Doo episode. Like it felt very Scooby-Doo-ish to me.
Yeah.
Now, like if only, like they would have been revealed to have been alive, and it was like the carnival owner that's actually doing all of it to get the island, as Derek would call it, off, for himself. Then it would be Scooby-Doo. But yeah, it does feel like a Supernatural episode.
Yeah.
Derek,
Which
final.
I
Go
do.
ahead.
I do like Supernatural. So that's.
Well, yeah.
I don't want to
Supernatural's
insult
great.
Supernatural.
No, Supernatural is great. This is not. Derek, any parting words for the fog?
It just nothing really stood out in the movie, right? It was a early 2000s horror movie. It wasn't a classic horror movie from the 1980s. It was just mediocre. It had nothing going for it.
Yeah, empty calories. I will say one of the
Yeah.
things that I'm very thankful is that it missed the trend of the speed ramps and chaotic editing of the late 90s and the early 2000s. We didn't have that aesthetic going on. We had the more clean, as you put it, Derek, commercial, version. So, yeah. I would not necessarily recommend it. You guys recommend it?
Nope.
I would recommend it maybe to children who are too scared to actually watch a scary movie,
Yes.
but want to kind of be involved in a horror kind of franchise.
I would say skip this and watch Goosebumps. Same, on par with the same quality, I would say. All right, that's all we have for you this week. Tune in next week when we'll be reviewing Chuck Russell's 1988 version of The Blob, starring Matt Dillon and Shawnee Smith. For Jamie Hiles and Lydia Judy and Derek Lemaster, remember, if you're going to scream bloody movies. You guys are the absolute worst at this. Screen bloody movies. I'll see you next week.